Tuesday, August 27th, according to someone's calendar, 7:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 7:06 starting there. That'll tie in later to something I say about a distance, but the 76 also ties into my birth year, which will tie into other things I say later. So, not knowing where I wanted to start, that's why it's starting like this. So, there's a few things, I guess, as I just sit in here and talk. I have a few pictures and a few videos over the past few days that I figured I'd just talk about. The 7.6 number is in there, but anyway, I guess I'll start with a caterpillar. We were looking at a caterpillar here that I hadn't seen before. It was really bright green, really big caterpillar, which later came to find out was, which would later become a Luna Moth. Actius Luna. And the pictures of that, of what it would look like later as a moth after it goes through its process, it's pretty amazing looking. Something I hadn't seen. So it was one of those things where I learned something new the other day. Saw something I hadn't seen before I thought was real interesting. And then the tie together with the name and the moon. And that which my son is going through currently, with the healing of the brain and the moon associated with the third eye, or that chakra, that system of thought or understanding of one's own energy. That very much has come to life, has ignited, so to speak, that third eye open, because he can see the pattern in the big picture and the deep picture, outside him and within him. Is currently tying it all together with the realization that that's what he's doing and that's what's going on, and that's why he doesn't have the words to convey certain things yet, though he realizes there are things that he's continuing to line up and such. So that was just another thing that sort of related around here. Something else, the day, it was yesterday, Monday, when, well, that was pointed out, so that then could be related to Moon Day. Yet another thing. I recorded the sun earlier today, so that again, the tie together of the sun and the moon. The pillars of consciousness. That's right now is what he's working through. The pillars of consciousness, so to speak, the sun and moon, the left hemisphere of the brain, the right hemisphere of the brain, the logic portion of the brain and the creative portion of the brain, coming together with one's own reason. Not pre-programmed ideas to be reacted upon, but free of those beliefs by seeing the pattern that those beliefs were created by, and then how they play out in the real world out there, in the egoic constructs of mind. That's what he's doing. He's going through that spiritual rebirth, so to speak. The dark night of the soul, so to speak. It's a whole process of going from one state of being to another state of being. I've related it before for myself. From in myself was, I felt as if. Never mind. What else? A day or so before that, before the caterpillar, we went out to a place called Sleeping Bear Dunes. Something that's in lower peninsula of Michigan, in the northwestern portion of it, on the shore of Lake Michigan. We went there as a family and walked the hike over these dunes to walk to the lake. And while I was there, with just a little bit of video that I guess I'll show in this, it's a very poor example comparatively to all the very there's a whole lot of examples of distance being seen when it comes to curvature not being there. This is only a very poor example of that, but the video itself, it isn't even the point. It's down on the shoreline. Looking through binoculars, I could see the other shoreline and then I looked later at the distance just to see what the distance was, and it was 7.6 miles. So I thought that was another interesting thing. And then that sort of, these things kind of tie together a little bit more, just because of, in one of the little videos I got of the caterpillar, I put a lighter my wife got me up on the tree for it for a size comparison. And the lighter, she got it for me because it says cancer. Not the cancer as in the disease. Cannabis infused coconut oil and a whole food plant-based diet takes care of that type of stuff with cutting out the sugar. Yeah, it's my birth month. Yeah, my birth month also, July also, it ties in with the whole astrology type thing. Which that's part of the quadrivium. That process of learning to learn. The grammar, logic, rhetoric of the trivium, or knowledge, wisdom, understanding of the trivium, or that trinity of learning how to learn with the left and right brain tied together with the reason of one's own, not led by belief, false pictures programmed in. It took me a while to sort those out and get a lot of those out of myself, but that's why I mentioned the trivium and the quadrivium, because those steps, and I'm not talking about the steps as in to bring the image to mind of the liberal arts as in an academic or college setting, because no, just the words, the grammar, the logic, the rhetoric, and then how they feel, going deeper with the mathematics, the geometry, the music, and the astrology, but not in an academic sense, but an internal feeling sense of the nature of those words, or the essence of those words, as in using that essence of those things as a way to try and learn and discern and understand nature. The nature within and the nature without. All interrelated. That's the sense in which I mean that, and that's the sense in which I'm speaking from when I throw together a lot of these terms from a lot of different places, because I don't ascribe or assign any of those labels to myself of any of these specific schools of thought, or this society or that society, or any of those costumes of the ego that have been created out there, because from what I've seen, the good guys do not wear costumes. And I only say that after living a life for 39 years and wearing a costume of my own for 21 of those years, thinking I was doing something right, not realizing the bigger or deeper picture, and realizing I was morally wrong every step of the way, because I let myself be led down whatever path I was led down, which to me, or for me, I've explained. That's really what the reason was for me to start speaking all of these things at the beginning, when I was able, really. So anyway, with that distance, and back to that, back to seeing that it's just, I mean, it's flat, there's no curvature, because it 7.6 miles according to the 8-inch per mile squared supposed curvature of the earth. That other shore, I mean, the lighthouse itself is what I marked as a reference point to measure, but Even that is a little bit above the shoreline, as in the video I was standing a little bit above the shoreline, though with my binoculars clearly I could see the other shoreline. So building aside, really, still it should have been hidden by 38.52 feet of curvature, and that isn't almost 4 stories of view obstructed when I can stand on one shore and see the other shore, let alone the building and all this other things. But it's just an example. Yet another example, like I said, albeit a poor one. There's other much better, much clearer, much further distances. But really that's the thing, is it's not my observation, or it's not the picture on the screen that's important. It's one's own observation through one's own eyes, whether aided by optics or not. And if not aided by optics, I'm not talking about a digital representation of what reality looks like through a screen. I'm talking about eyes aided with optics of glass to see the light propagation of the ether in the ether, through the ether. So anyway, if the eyes are unaided, still to keep in mind, eyes cannot see infinity in infinite distance. There is that vanishing line of the horizon to where the light, the visual information out there cannot be perceived. Though when you zoom in with optics, you can see, because it continues to go straight, flat, no curvature. Now imagine, if you will, the 21 years I spent wearing my costume. I was in the Army as a scout, a reconnaissance specialist. Jack of all trades, master of none, master of terrain and camouflage and movement through the environment. Blah, blah, blah. Imagine my embarrassment later, much later, when I was able to get all, like, the vast majority at least of the insanity-inducing toxins out of my system that were injected into me, and the metals out of my brain and different adjuvants that had shut down parts of my brain and definitely cut off the conscience of my heart. So I couldn't feel for the truth of things either, clearly, as my psyche got further and deeper compartmentalized and fractured. So anyway, imagine my embarrassment later when I came to realize all these lies and more lies and other things I'd been lied to about. And I mean, from everything: government, religion, the birth certificate, the social security system, the mark of the beast number. We got all this nonsense that's been going on for, I don't know, generational enslavement. There we go. So anyway, to see that I was in position so many times where I saw things so clearly with my own eyes, things at distances that far exceeded what I saw at the lake. I mean, by far. And I didn't connect the dots. I didn't put it together, as many don't do, because of the indoctrination, the training, the constant distraction, the constant toxicity of body and mind, due to what's being just repetitively fed into and absorbed by the individual. Oh man, it's crazy. It really is, I'm telling you. But it's worth going through that inner process to heal that stuff, and it takes getting a clean body to have a clean mind, because really the psychology has to be understood, one's own psychology, the psychology of a living man or living woman, a living spiritual man, a living spiritual woman. They have to know and master their own psychology and their own physiology, their mind and their body together, because the mind is in the body, and what goes into the body affects the mind. It affects how the senses perceive reality, how that information is processed. The problems we got now is with the indoctrination and toxicity that's being just repetitively done blindly, and it's getting worse much faster, to where the state of chaos inside and outside of folks out there today is worse than likely it ever has been. I mean, barring some, yeah, catastrophic failure of society before it reset. But I figured here we are, because I can't see how it could possibly be any more insane, because the conscience, the heart is empty out there, folks. As I did for so long, I ran around as an empty shell in there without conscience, run by consciousness of mind, of brain, and in my case, of audled and retarded brain, in my case, because I couldn't clearly and hadn't taken the time, and really turns out I didn't have the ability to even define myself. Define myself for myself, in myself, to figure out the who, what, and why of me, and the more of this overall purpose and experience here. I never took the time until I was kind of forced to, as I've said before. So really, again, like I said, it's not my observations that are important. But please also don't assume that I'm wrong about what I'm saying. Because, yeah, sometimes, yeah, when one assumes, it can make an ass out of you and not me. Or in some cases, you and me, or, whatever. However you want to put it or look at it. But yes, an assumption, I figure, is still a belief, because an assumption isn't something one knows. One is just assuming things are a different way, or not the way that is being spoken. And really, that's what's going on here. So, as I speak and as I say these things, I'm speaking with conscience from my heart and soul, which took me a few years to gain and build that ability to do that, because before that I didn't know I existed inside like I do now, like I speak now. Before, I was that empty shell in my heart, in my conscience, and I operated from consciousness of mind, those pillars of sun and moon, so to speak, broken, now operating from the third pillar, the pillar of wisdom, my spine, in full resonance of my own energy, in full understanding and control and self-governance of my own energy and my own actions. I wasn't like that at all before. I operated only from mind, not with much conscience of heart. So, that drove me to continuously and repetitively make incorrect choices, incorrect actions, based off of only belief of things I was told as I went through life. As I went through life as the egoic construct that I thought I was in my mind, of all of the affixed labels I had attached to myself with whatever. Back then, I would speak from a place of we's, and we this, and I think this, and you should do this, and I should do that, and we, and this, and that, and they, and now, that's the difference. That's the difference, really, I've found, of going from a scattered state of chaotic mind in consciousness of the brain, to the I of you, or whoever you are, whoever you might be, of going to that place of speaking absolutely for yourself, from the core of yourself, but in line with the truth, to the best of your ability to convey it from what you have come to know inside for yourself, and feel to line up with the truth of nature itself. And that goes into that deep internalization of just what the psyche is, the psychology, how it works, how thoughts can then manifest into emotion based off of some picture that's in the mind that may have been put there or seen by others. And if it's a belief, it can trigger emotion and emotional response, because that's how the education system and how all of the things on the networks are conveyed and portrayed. They're portrayed in such a way as to elicit that, in the ridiculous psychology terms of academia, but that Pavlovian responsive behavior. Ring the bell, the dog salivates. In the same way, flash money, and the ego salivates, or greed salivates, because it's been taught that this valueless thing has value. Why? Because the ego was taught it had to pay to live here. Why? Because the ego doesn't understand its nature. The nature inside that isn't the ego. It's the moral living man or moral living woman in their soul inside their being for this limited time here in creation. That's what it is. That's what's important. So don't fall for an image or I'll just let that go wherever it was going to go. But I guess to go right along with it, I was looking at an ad that's sitting on the table that comes in the mail, the junk mail, and it can get into that whole nonsense of just on the constant continuous waste. The address, that whole fraud of the slave system, and how that was all used. But you know what? I'm not talking about all these different ridiculous systems of nonsense. Trying to talk about the core of some of the problems, because a lot of the core of the problems are inside folks still, and they haven't realized, and they can't fix it until they realize it and then work to fix it and change behaviors. But there was an ad sitting on the table that said Labor Day sale. Of course, it's a sale of all this crap that's unhealthy for you. All kinds of junk. Anyway, the word itself, and the looking at these things backwards and forwards and this and that, and just seeing, I mean, if folks aren't looking at things like that, or the numbers and things, I mean, it's helpful. It's to help you see how folk are portraying things to you and tricking you with language and this and that. But just the word itself, labor, read that backwards, and it says rob all, R-O-B-A-L, rob all. So Labor Day, so the day, yeah, you're taught that, yeah, it's great, celebrate all your hard work by taking the day off and relaxing and celebrating. The whole time you don't realize you've been robbed of all your labor, because all of your labor comes down to your own physical and mental and spiritual energy you expend here in this life. And it wasn't meant to just create shit blindly for the materialistic scumbags that enslaved this place generations ago and then built it on all kinds of different forms of law. And that still, at this very time, as they look to bring down their current ridiculous layered system of man's law, they're still looking to institute, of course, their next version to them, maybe their final version of their one world, their Noahide laws based off of their false version of morality. And so there we go. That pretty much gets to the core of all the problems, is that man or woman, with whatever egoic costume or label attachments they attach themselves to, will decide, no matter what, that they think they have the moral right to control and rule and enslave those who don't know better, those who don't know what they are, who they are, or why they are, and why we're all here. Because if you only think you're here for their purposes, like you are indoctrinated to think that's what the education system of the public school is for, and then up higher through academia, each stage of each graduation, each cemented degree, each time that square of the mortarboard is placed upon the head and that ritual is complete, the psyche is just further indoctrinated into different degrees and grades of confusion, and the perception narrows and narrows and narrows, while the individual thinks their mind is expanding because they think they are learning more. What's happening is they're being filled with more and more compartmentalized nonsense that makes it so they have a harder and harder time of seeing the big picture. Hence why some folks think physiology and psychology are two different things. No, they're intertwined. They're intertwined within you, within your body, within your physical existence. Just like me. And that's why I came to realize it's most important to master one's own energy. Learn what that means. Learn what that is. Master one's own psychology. Learn what that is. Learn what that means. Learn how one functions, their mind. Be able to define the thoughts and emotions, where and how they manifest, and then decide if they'll be acted or reacted upon. If need be, that need can be felt in the heart. That empathetic knowing in the heart of not wanting to cause harm, but knowing the need to protect life. That nature of nature, the nature of spiritual man and spiritual woman, here in this world, on this plane of existence, whatever it looks like big picture wise, because I don't know, and I know there's plenty of things I can't know. And then I also know that there's an infinite amount of things that I just can't comprehend. So when I talk about all these pillars of consciousness and there's different ways of trying to interrelate these things, and then maybe even talk about the sun and the moon and the big picture of nature, the nature that we live underneath every day, that goes over our head every day, and observing it, please realize I'm not talking about hocus pocus crapalocus or anything. I'm talking about a few long, deep years I've spent going into a lot of things very deeply, and then am only trying to convey in maybe the best way I can, some of the best of what I can, to just try and help other folk key in and get that key, the key of the heart, of that conscience that will connect to God, to the Creator, so one can know and not need a mediator. So the church can be you, the church can be every day in nature. Trying to get to know your nature and master your nature and govern your nature, but just your nature, and not govern other nature or control or enslave other nature, but to observe it, to be a part of it in a caring way, in a protecting way, in a non-violent, non-aggressive way. That's the way we can all live in our natural, harmonious state. What's it take to get there? It takes cleaning out the toxins of the body. How you do that? Water. Clean water. Purest water possible with natural minerals. A variety of all the natural minerals from the earth that the body needs, that can be found in the fruits, the vegetables, the nuts and seeds, the mineral salt. And sticking to it and breaking the addictions. The addictions such as sugar, the addictions such as pharmaceutical, petrochemical, poisonous drugs. Get to know the language of, language, symbology. Just dig into things. See how it interrelates inside you. See how it interrelates in the world around you, because it's being used everywhere. And it's important to have a handle on, because otherwise this generational enslavement just continues. And back just for another numbers thing to go with the mathematics, or that step of the quadrivium, which I'm saying that's a process to internalize. It's not a part to go into those academic studies of those specific words. No, it's just to look at the word, get a deep understanding of the word to gain the wisdom that's available. So, but the numbers, that 7.6 mile little view we had that day, you had a 38.52 feet. So to simply add the two numbers on either side of the decimal, that's 11 and 7. 3 plus 8, or 38 being 11.52. The 5 and the 2 being 7. So that's the 7 and the 11. So why? Went backwards. But that's alright for this. Well, the 11 being those pillars of consciousness. I think folk remember in 11 and the pillars of consciousness being destroyed at one point. Remember, 7 was a part of it. 7 was the thing you didn't hear about it. Why? Maybe it was to make that empty shell of conscience devoid of the 7 being gone, missing. But the 7 can be found, and the 7 is in the heart, and the 7 is the spirit, and the 7 is the soul. Yeah. So 7-Eleven may be that, not the chain store if the mind happened to go there. Please, no, not there. Not out there in their stuff. In the twisted logos they use to divide the psyche and to drive that me, want. Not that. But now that I said that, I lost myself as to what I was saying. Oh, the 7-Eleven, the logos, yes. But no, the logos of truth. The 7, the spirit. The 7, not 6. The 7, not 8. The conscience has to be felt. It has to be grown. It is the core. It has to be. One's own ability has to be recognized and found within, and then grown and worked to attain and build. And that really, I wasn't able to do it while my body and mind was toxic. 39 years. 39 years. I did not live a full life. I lived a life of insanity, of disconnectedness. A fake life, a fake egoic life of a fake construct, of a corporate fictional name. Wearing a costume. And I hope others can break that a lot faster than I did. It's the only reason I say the words I say is to try and help folks. I don't know. Help folks along their journey. And I know those words, these kinds of words, and the words that go against beliefs that we are all taught. I know they trigger emotional responses. But those emotional responses, they have to be recognized within the one where it's occurring, and then recognized, well, why did I respond in such a way when only a word was spoken? And then go into figuring out the why, because the why is likely the lie that creates that emotional reaction, because it's likely based off of a belief that's held that's false or contradictory to morality. So when I came to find inside me that almost everything inside me was contradictory belief, and that it was against morality and against truth. And I felt that to the core of me. The more I sifted through what was inside and realized almost all I had inside me was just twisted darkness and different lies that I was trying to use in a good way. And I see that's why society is so broken, because it doesn't work. And that was known. That was known well before I was born, and that's what's only getting worse today, and other folk need to come to realize these things. Please, and then let others know so they can stop poisoning themselves and each other and controlling themselves or controlling others instead of being able to control themselves and just feeding off of each other without a second thought, without the feeling of the damage inside that's doing and that behavior is causing. So I'm convinced our souls or our spirits pay for what we do as we live each moment of each day. In the place I had gotten to, I couldn't go any further. And I had to make a lot of changes. physically, but then that's when all the real pain started of the spiritual growth. Because the spiritual growth couldn't happen until I destroyed inside, inwardly, what I thought I was. It's probably got a bit long-winded and repetitive. I guess I'd probably just put it up anyway, just how it sounds with whatever. Put in these pictures however I do. I hope someone gets something out of it, and if you don't, yeah, thanks for listening. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Appreciate it.